I've been getting ready for a local convention called Protocon, where designers and playtesters get together and test game designs. I've been thinking a lot about some of the design problems I have in SpinForge, and I've made some changes in an effort to resolve them before the convention. One of the most prominent issues I've seen is what I would call the monocolor or monoelement problem. In SpinForge, a key mechanic is that the tiles you place on your spinners not only benefit you in spinning and collecting, but they can also make you eligible to obtain power cards. What I would see game after game, though, is that players would end up fully assuming the role of one particular element with their power cards and almost entirely ignoring the rest. It was pretty obvious in retrospect why this is the case. In an effort to be both simple to parse and thematic, I had made the requirement for power cards which was too tightly coupled to a singular element. This led to players pigeonholing themselves into one particular element. This is where the monocolor problem really starts, because it becomes much easier to snowball in one color direction. There are 16 rare cards across 2 decks. Previously 9 of them were monocolor, but I've reduced that to just 4. There are 16 epic cards across the 2 decks. Previously 8 of them were monocolor, but I've reduced that to just 3. I want SpinForge to be a fun experience at all player counts, and there were a couple power cards that were a bit too swingy based on player count. One of those was Aftershock, which was incredibly powerful with 4 players and slightly underwhelming with 2. I've decided to tie it back to the player, which eliminates the player count dependency. Shared Warmth was another card I felt I really needed to change. It had the same power fluctuation based on player count, but it had a really feels bad interaction when the other players played around it. In some cases, players would intentionally remove all the fire from their board just to ensure the player who had this card wouldn't get any benefit from it. While this was an interesting interaction with some groups, it frequently felt bad for the player who had it. I've adjusted the card to make it consistently powerful while benefiting all other players instead. In this way, it becomes a purely positive one that everybody can play around. A couple cards have turned out to be too weak or situational and needed rebalancing, specifically when spinning is involved. Recharge was one of those, and its conditions gave it additional mental overhead with less powerful and infrequent payoff. It has been buffed by removing the requirement, which should make it work more frequently. Living Water had a similar issue, being condition dependent and didn't provide enough value. Battery felt punishing for its requirement, and mediocre when compared to other cards affecting spin. It now has a unique effect, without a condition that fits it thematically. The Giving Tree wasn't necessarily weak for the player who had it, but the benefit to the other players was always lackluster when it made it into the game. I've rebalanced it accordingly. I've had cards that I thought were out of balance and overpowered before, but sometimes you need to see something in play to know just how broken it is. One player paired Discharge with the Rolling Thunder. While I was aware of this interaction and hopeful that one day it would be paired together, I underestimated how absurd it would end up being. I didn't want to completely kill the interaction, so I changed Rolling Thunder, which will prevent it from resulting in a consistent chain of purchases, as it necessitates spinning to trigger. This won't negatively impact Rolling Thunder's primary purpose of being the ultimate spin generator, and will still provide decent value when paired with Discharge. Some cards are so fun in your head when you make them, and you think, oh, this is going to be awesome. But then you realize just how much they can stall or drag out the game. Tidal Wave was one of those cards because it literally had you evaluating every single position on the board and every card that would be in play and every tile to see what you might be able to match. I've made it a lot simpler and based on the condition of collecting, so you're making a quick decision about the 2 adjacent tiles if you can even make that at all. Almost all of the changes involve power cards. However, I did go back and modify a few of the common tiles in order to remove the last Arcane only tile while balancing elemental representation, because it's a trap! Which made it more difficult for players to make matches throughout the rest of the game. It will be interesting to see if these changes have the effect I'm hoping for, and I hope it's been helpful for you in seeing how I might evaluate something. How might you evaluate something in your own games?